The newlyweds were expected to consummate their marriage in front of relatives and friends, but when they lay down, the groom froze and couldn't bring himself to move. Seeing this, the bride had no choice but to take the initiative. Once the ceremony was over and the guests left, however, Prince Henry suddenly exploded with rage. He shouted at his new wife to get out. Catherine, who had only been married off as a political tool to please France, was already in a precarious position, and now Henry's open disdain made things even worse. She assumed that her forwardness had embarrassed him, so she went back hoping to apologize, only to stumble upon him with her cousin Diane. Catherine was stunned, especially because it was Diane who had taught her that the bride should take the lead on her wedding night. After that incident, Catherine became the laughingstock of the entire court. Even the stable hands knew her husband spent his days seeking pleasure elsewhere, and some of them made outrageous remarks about it. Yet Catherine didn't really dwell on Henry's infidelity. Her only concern was how to survive. Apart from bearing an heir, she could see no other path. So she tried to win Henry over, but it didn't seem to work. Soon, even worse news arrived. The king announced that Catherine's uncle had died in an accident. Diane was clearly pleased, since Catherine's dowry still hadn't been fully paid. If she failed to get pregnant, she could be expelled from the palace. Ministers began to question whether Catherine was even capable of bearing children. The king, however, first asked whether Henry was fulfilling his duties as a husband, because if he wasn't, then he hardly deserved to be called a man. Catherine replied that Henry was very dutiful, adding that it was entirely possible she was already pregnant. Her quick-witted answer temporarily diffused the crisis, but she knew time was running out. Fortunately, her response won Henry's favor, and he told her he would come to her chambers that evening. When night fell, Henry did arrive. But before he could enter, Diane intercepted him, inviting him to her own room to read the Bible, claiming Catherine was not in the right condition for a few days. Henry chose Diane's room instead. Catherine waited in vain until her maid brought dreadful news. She was led into a hidden chamber with a peephole that looked directly into Diane's quarters, where she was forced to witness the very scene she dreaded most. But Catherine also knew she had to conceive quickly, or her life could be in danger. She then thought about the stable hand who had mouthed off to her that day.